Hi everybody, it's great to be back with you. In this lecture we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to study that many verses in the Bible. We're going to talk on a question which sometimes comes up when we talk about a young earth, or we talk about the fact that God created the heavens and the earth the way the Bible says. We get this statement that people frequently make, and that is, but what about the dinosaurs? Now, in many cultures, dinosaurs are actually quite popular things, and they're very popular. If you walk around toy stores and stuff like that, you'll find dinosaurs. Maybe in the townships we don't talk much about dinosaurs, but it's actually a very popular question. People like to think about it and talk about it. And so I want to try to answer to you, what about the dinosaurs? Now, just in the basic scientific thing, they tell us that the dinosaurs became extinct 65 million years ago, and that there was probably a comet or something like that that killed all the large animals, and so the dinosaurs became extinct. So let's just start with some basic pieces of information. Where do we get the name dinosaurs from? Well, it started in about the 1840s or so. I'm going to have to refer to some of my notes occasionally on this one. When a particular man called Sir Richard Owen in 1841, he discovered these bones, massive bones in the ground, and he figured out that this was a reptile, massive, gigantic reptiles, and he decided to give it a name, and he named these animals dinosaurs, which comes from the Greek, which basically means terrible lizard. Okay, and of course ever since then the paleontologists have been studying it and putting together these dinosaurs for us to show us that they lived on this earth 65 million years ago, they claim, and what they looked like. And over the years we've had more and more depictions of dinosaurs. Now, the question is, we're trying to deal with really today is, what about the dinosaurs? So let me ask you, first of all, what does the Bible say? The Bible says all creatures were created by God, placed on this earth at the time of Adam, and Adam named them. And we've talked a bit about that. Alright? So that is what the Bible teaches. So any animal that was created or ever on this earth, the Bible teaches, they were created at the time of Adam, at the creation, and Adam knew about them. So we need to ask ourselves the question, which is what the Bible is obviously saying. We believe that dinosaurs and man coexisted on earth at the same time. And so you probably think, well, that's kind of crazy. Do we have evidence of that? And you know, we have a lot of evidence. Sure, I acknowledge sometimes the evidence can be debatable because scientists really love their timelines, but the reality is we have a lot of evidence pointing towards the coexistence of dinosaurs and human beings on the earth together. We have biblical evidence, we have historical evidence, okay, we have paleontological evidence. Alright, so I'm just going to put, first of all, let me just do this for you. I'm going to put a picture on the screen. Here it is. Now notice here, this is a picture, this particular is a stone engraving or a drawing by people from many, many years ago from America in Utah. It has been aged. It is known, even anti-creationists, people that are against our beliefs and our standards, say this is an ancient painting. Now just think about it for a while. How on earth did ancient man living in America draw this? The only way that someone draws something like this, which is a dinosaur, which we've only started depicting after 1840s, the only way that they can draw this is that they saw it. Which means that they were living and seeing these creatures at the same time. That it was not a story that someone had told them, because generally when people drew something, they drew it as out of memory. They couldn't rely on the story because the story doesn't depict it. So generally the person who draws it is going to be the person who saw it. Let's just think about a few other depictions of some very interesting animals. Now let's take this particular one, which is a mosaic. A mosaic is done in the Roman times through tons of little tiles all over the place that create a picture. It's called a mosaic. Now there's a very famous mosaic in southern Rome. Alright? A massive mosaic. And in it, if we look at it, let me throw a picture on it. This is what the mosaic looks like. Okay? And on it, in detail, there is this creature called the crocodile leopard. Now let me just say that the Greeks were very, very good at trying to, when they're seeing a creature, to try to relate it to the animals that they know. For instance, the word hippopotamus comes from two words, hippo, which actually in the Greek means horse, and potamus, which means river. So hippopotamus is a river horse. So when they looked at this mosaic, at this creature, they called it the crocodile. This is obviously translating the Greek, the crocodile leopard. And look at that creature, crocodile leopard. It means that it was reptilian, it was large, but it was as quick and fast and as dangerous as a leopard. What animal are they talking about? Other than a dinosaur, a very dangerous dinosaur. Alright, so that's just one other example that I can give you. Let's take another one, the Ica Peruvian burial stones. Now, yes, they are, from the 1500s, the Spanish were bringing these burial stones back to Europe. And even then, they noticed these interesting creatures that were carved into these burial stones. Creatures that they, now, of course, Europe also had their own things, so that Europe probably had a good guess what they were, but they brought them back even in the 1500s. And Peru had a habit of producing burial stones which had all kinds of things on them. Yes, there have been fakes in recent years, but a lot of work has been done to date many of these, and they go back thousands of years, but they have images of dinosaurs on them. So what were the people looking at? We can't suddenly say, oh no, they knew about dinosaurs, because we only knew about dinosaurs in 1841. So they were seeing these creatures and making pictures of them. Alright? Take this other one, which is a typical picture, you say, from a very, and it's been checked and seen, very, very much an original artwork on stone, and yet it looks exactly like, well, a dragon. But we'll come to that in a few minutes. Okay. Now, here's the next question that we need to ask. Okay. So we are familiar with the fact that dinosaurs probably lived on this earth, and we will look at the Bible just now to kind of just think a little bit about that as well. We have a lot of instances even in well-known literature. We have Alexander the Great. At a certain time in the history, he was traveling, because you must remember Alexander the Great, with his great desire, the Greeks, of course, great desire to conquer the earth. He basically went right to the ends of the earth, marched his armies right to the ends of the earth to take over the whole earth. And in that process, he came across an Indian tribe who claimed, listen, we will submit to you, but there's one thing we don't want you to do. Don't kill the snake that we look after. This great big serpent that we look after. And of course, all the soldiers were fascinated to see this thing. And they went and they looked at the snake, and it was so big, they said its eyes were as big as our shields. Think about that. Now, what kind of creature is that? Okay? So, we are learning that even though we have this historical science, there's a lot of evidence, in the sense that they'll come and tell us 65 million years ago, there's a lot of evidence that dinosaurs have lived side by side with man. Now, in Europe, I believe, and I think if we look at the myths also concerning China, remember China is a long way away from Europe, there is a lot of evidence to show that the term that they utilized to describe dinosaurs that lived in the vicinities of the far reaches of Europe, they were given the name dragons. Remember, dinosaurs, the term dinosaur was only invented in the 1840s. And they gave the name dragon. And I know that when we look at dragons on television, we see this thing that flies and reptilian and fire out of its mouth. And, we then assume that all dragons fly and so on and so on. But in the 1500s, when they talked about this, even in the encyclopedias that they wrote in that period, they write that dragons are creatures that are very rare, but they do exist. In fact, there's a whole book of dragons written by the Europeans. The whole churches set around the fact that a man of God went out and killed a dragon. Okay, now, what are those dragons? Are they myths? No. It's very likely they are a type of dinosaur living in close proximity to man, and obviously making man very frightened, and people went out to kill them. I know this is a bit of a kind of a head thing. I know that you have to work through this, But really, myths generally have foundations and stories. And think a little bit about dragons. How can China have so many dragon depictions in all their ancient pottery? And we even see them with their dragons, and they have the month of the dragon. And the fact their months are all animals, and they also have the month of the dragon. So they had it built there. That wasn't, hey, brought from Europe. You know, the Chinese have never thought much of the Europeans. They had seen dragons, okay? So just think a little bit about that and this urban myth that has been all around this world, all looking the same. So in so many ways we can see that dragons are actually the dinosaurs. We just call them dinosaurs today. Now I want to go back to the Bible. In fact, if you go and you read Psalm 91, we find some fascinating verses about something. And you know, in the original King James Version, when they got to this verse in Psalm 91, they actually put the word dragon there. I know we take it away because we say we can't be a dragon because it's a myth. But the people of God who translated the Bible understood from that Hebrew word, tanim, in Psalm 91, that it was referring to these creatures, and put the creature in, which is a dragon. And that occurs in Psalm 91. So in Hebrew, we have a word that describes these creatures, which is tanim, and it occurs quite a few times in the Bible. And in fact, the Bible also talks about actual creatures with actual names. And they said this creature, for instance, the Leviathan, the Bible says to us in Isaiah 27, it says that this Leviathan is a tanim. Alright? This Leviathan is a tanim. And we know the behemoth was also a tanim. And so tanim was a general term utilized for, it seems, for the dinosaurs of their time that they knew about and they wrote about. Okay? Now in Psalm 91, we will find this in the glorious, you see, remember Psalm 91 is dealing with fear. Okay, it's dealing with fear, Psalm 91. It's dealing with fear, and there's nothing more people are frightened of than the large, massive reptilian creatures which could actually kill them. And if you think that those dinosaurs that ate grass were actually harmless because you don't see them chasing the people in the movies like Jurassic Park, think again, because let me tell you something, those big dinosaurs that just ate grass, munched away, could kill you like this. And you say, how will they kill you? They can kill you with their tail. Okay, I'm going to show you a quick video to give you an example. Oh, that's a bit of a funny moment there. But it's real life. And in fact, reptiles, large reptiles do make use of their tails to attack. Alright, even those that are vegetarians. So let's go to Psalm 91 and let's read it up from verse 13. Now this will show you the power of God over you. And you must remember they're trying to use the worst possible creature that you'll be frightened of the most. And of course we lose it a little bit in the translations because most Bible translations don't want to use and talk about creatures that we don't know anything about. So they often try to replace it with something that we do know something about and in the process lose it a little bit. In verse 13 it says, you will tread on the lion and the cobra, you will trample the great lion. Now we don't know what the great lion is, that's another discussion. And the serpent. But the word serpent there is the tanim. It originally was translated dragon. You will trample on the dragon. You will overcome even the dragon. So even the lion and the serpent, which we see frequently, and even that scary creature called that reptilian creature that exists far away that everyone talks about and is frightened about, you'll conquer that as well. And so the Hebrew word tanim appears there. And in the 1500s it was translated dragon. Let's have a little look. If you're still not convinced, let's go to Job chapter 40. Now Job is a very ancient book. It goes very, very far back, and it has some interesting thing about a creature in Job 40 called the behemoth. Now I love the fact that the original writers, the original translators didn't go and try to translate. They realized that this was not a normal creature. It wasn't a creature that you and I are familiar with, so they kept the original Hebrew. The original Hebrew was behemoth, so you don't hear it anywhere else. They were lucky for us they didn't try to translate it elephant or something. Alright? And in Job chapter 40, we get God speaking to Job and saying these words. in verse 15, look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. So this particular creature God made. He says, I made along with you. And in fact, God is pointing to this creature to show how big he is, how massive he is, and it's part of his argument to Job. And it's a creature we do not relate to or understand. So I'm just mentioning this to you just to make you think a little bit here. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox, whose strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Now listen to this. Its tail sways like a cedar. Cedar is a big tree. It says like its tail is like a tree. How can it be an elephant? Have you seen the elephant's tail? It's a little tail. Have you seen the hippopotamus's tail? It's a little tail. This thing has a tail like a tree. This thing is a dinosaur. So Job knew this. God knew this creature, and when God spoke to Job, he knew that Job would know that creature. In fact, it gives us some scientific information about it, and it goes on to show it ranks first amongst the works of God. Yet its maker can approach it with his sword. So this is ranked first among the works of God. In other words, it's the largest creature that God has made. The hills bring it their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. So this particular creature could hide itself entirely in the reeds in the marsh. And I think a lot of dinosaurs, often we watch them on these plains, Jurassic Park and so on, but I believe a lot of them were very, very, very much in water. Now, in marshy areas and in water. In fact, that is pretty much where we go wrong. We watch too much TV, we don't understand that. The reason that many of these creatures they hid because they spent a lot of time in water. In Job 41, you can read all about Leviathan, and if you read, the Leviathan's mentioned quite a lot in the Bible, and if you read in Isaiah 27, the word Leviathan and Tannin occurs one after each other, because in Isaiah 27 it tells us that a Leviathan is a Tannin. Alright? And in Job 41 we get a massive description of the Leviathan. Okay? And it's very also fascinating that it even mentions in verse 20 that it breathes, smoke pours from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sends coal ablaze and flames dart from its mouth, which is really interesting, isn't it? So now you might think, well, that's like a bit like the myths that we have from the dragons of old. But, don't kid yourself. There's a lot of evidence on this. And if God describes this, maybe God gave it the ability to produce a chemical reaction in its mouth which can produce a flame. Now you might say, how on earth is that possible? I don't know. But the Bible says it's there, and the way the Bible reads it and says it, it shows that this was a living creature that Job knew. If this was just a myth, why would God say this like this to Job? It just doesn't make sense. So just think a little bit about it. I know this is like out there, but I do believe that in so many ways we have, the ancient people understood and knew about these creatures. Now, there were lots of them. We could even, as I say, we've looked at history a little bit. We've looked at some of the archaeological finds, Inca stones, the different things like that have shown it. Let me show you one other thing, a recent fossil discovered from 2014 or 2004, I think. In 2004, a fossil was found, and when they created that fossil, they made an image of the fossil looked like this. And of course, as a result of this, they call it Draconis. It was only found in 2004, but doesn't it make you think, wow, dragons and dinosaurs, same thing? They've always been here. So what really happened? How did they go extinct? Well, let me tell you how they went extinct. They went extinct because mankind and dinosaurs never pretty much got on together. They were too big, they were interfering, they were dangerous, there were problems, and as man expanded on the earth, those dinosaurs moved further and further away. Now there's lots of evidence we can give. We can talk about terms used in New Zealand, certain bones discovered there in different times. We could talk about recent bone discoveries which have DNA in the bones. and of course the scientific outcry about that discovery. There's all kinds of stuff out there on this subject. We have there's actually some fascinating things on this. And people say, well, let me just throw this in here. So what I'm just trying to say is that there's more than enough evidence that God made these creatures, put them with man. Adam even named them. They existed, but as you can imagine, man and these creatures haven't really got on too well, and over the years they have died out. And so that is my talk to you today. That is what I believed happened with the dinosaurs. They were always on the earth. And you might ask the question, well, how did Noah get them in the ark? But people have studied that as well. And the thing with reptiles is as they get older, they keep growing. So the longer they live, the bigger they get. It's not like you get baby dinosaurs and boom, they just suddenly jump up to that. They actually, as they stay longer, the older they get, the bigger they get. So it has been shown that young dinosaurs could have quite easily been kept in the ark, and they would have been of a size that would have managed to stay alive. Also, I do believe a lot of dinosaurs were aquatic. In many ways, could really spend large amounts of time in the water without drowning, and so maybe they also survived in that way. But that's what I really believe happened. And so it is a fascinating area. I just throw it out there as something to think about. But, don't rely on these methods of dating. Because, sometimes what we have in these methods of dating is we really think that I can pick up any stone from anywhere and I can just take it to a lab and they can date it. It's not true. People can only date rocks which have got radioactive material in it, and there is a lot more factors than just that associated with it. Okay, now we may be debating this forever, but I firmly believe there's enough evidence. I think if you sat down and you looked at it, there's a great website on this if you're interested in studying more. It's called genesispark.com, and they have a lot of evidence and a lot of discussions, and you can even go and read about people who believe that dinosaurs are alive today. I find that fascinating, I personally do, but the moment we go across into that question, we get these thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hoaxes, and we really don't want to make this channel into hoax discussions. Really, we don't. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, genesispark.com is your destination of choice. I do find it interesting, but I hope you enjoyed this lecture and it will make you think a little bit more. And this was just a golden nugget. I know there was lots of Bible verses on it, but I think I've hoped to make you think a little bit about different things in the Bible. And by the way, the Bible actually mentions quite a lot of different types of creatures as well, but those are often hard to teach on, so I won't be able to go there at the moment. But you can stick with the behemoth, the leviathan, the tannin, and that study alone is fascinating. And we can know that dinosaurs have been around with mankind, with Adam in the Garden of Eden. There is no problem here in debating and discussing this area. I hope you enjoy this lecture. Keep going. You've now finished the first Genesis module. Make sure you answer the questions. Remember, they're not Bible verse questions. They just ask you different things about... and most of the questions in this module will mostly likely just be generic information that you have received, because after all, this is a golden nugget. God bless you. Thanks for watching.